When you walked in the first day, you could still smell the fresh paint. And I loved Kevin McGarry's expression, the past, present, and future coming full circle. Take the red serge off and put him chopping wood. A bigger action sequence than has ever been in either show. Goosebump moments, I think, are coming.
Hi, everyone. I would like to welcome to the podcast today Alfonso Moreno. Alfonso is the showrunner for When Hope Calls. So thanks, Alfonso, for being here.
It's great to be here. Thank you.
So we're so excited to have When Hope Calls out there so that we have something to view right now. As the showrunner, could you explain a little bit more about your role and all of the work that you have done for When Hope Calls?
Yeah, I created When Hope Calls, and originally I created it as I created these characters and put them in a Christmas movie for When Calls the Heart. So I think it was in season 6 where Lillian and Grace come with orphans, and all along the intent was to use that as a launching pad for a new series because Hallmark had come to me and said, we want to create a spinoff. Can you do that for us? So I came up with this idea of these two young women who were orphaned and separated and had you know come back together as when they were young adults and created this orphanage and because they wanted to run an orphanage differently than they had experienced. So I like that idea because I thought this series, the One Calls the Heart, and now this is all about emotion, the heart, and I just felt that this was a great way to create those kind of stories because these orphan children, you can't help but feel for them, and they all have their own stories, and these two young women who knew each other, who were sisters but then were separated when they were very young. I thought all of that was great grist for the mill, as they say, for storytelling. So from there we went and started this new series, and as the showrunner I helped design the sets, or I worked with a production designer in designing the sets, and worked with the costumers, and so the showrunner is sort of involved in all of that, and all of the little detail of the costumes and the set design and the production design. They all sort of confer with me and on how the show will look.
Well, that I had noticed on IMDb that it said co-creator. And so this is kind of like your baby, right?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Yeah.
That's pretty amazing. And like you said, this is not the first period drama that you have done. You have a rich history of writing Canadian period drama, specifically 1920s. You served also as the showrunner for When Calls the Heart in seasons 5, 6, and 7, which many Hearties know that about you. And so you're famous with all of the Hearties. Can you talk a little bit about writing for When Calls the Heart and how that stretched you as a writer?
Uh, Prior to working on One Calls the Heart, almost all of my experience had been on procedural dramas in the U.S. So I had written, my background I was a lawyer before becoming a writer. I So I worked on a number of legal shows like The Practice, The Guardian, um, and for a little bit of humor, there was Drop Dead Diva that was a character that had humor in it. And then I worked on police procedural, so like NCIS. So this was sort of a different experience for me. But when by the time that I started on When Calls the Heart, I really was looking for a change because when you write procedural dramas over for a lot of years, it becomes uh, it didn't seem as challenging anymore because it's so structural in terms of what happens at the end of act one, two, three, four. I wanted something that had a little more what they call serialized drama, which is stories that are ongoing. So I was looking for that, but I hadn't experienced any kind of uh, what I think people are coining family friendly dramas or uh, these romantic stories. So it was a new experience for me, but I found that I really enjoyed doing it. I really enjoyed writing things from, uh, like from the heart. These stories that, I think the goal for all of these stories is to at least have like a goosebump moment in them, right?
Mhm.
Where something that's moving and touching that happens toward the end. And I always know that I've achieved it if I get goosebumped as I'm writing it, or I get teary-eyed as times when I'm writing, I get little tissues. Because it strikes me as I'm writing these stories that just I become emotional. So if I become emotional, I know that it's probably going to hit the audience too.
So, When Calls the Heart has a track record of being a successful show now and when you were the showrunner. But what else do you gauge as success for a show like When Hope Calls or When Calls the Heart?
I mean, the biggest metric is obviously the audience and whether it goes up. And I was really proud of the fact that every season that I worked on it, the audience kept increasing. But the other gauge is this, social media, and that's something that the network looks at, that they're constantly uh, watching, engaging, and how people react. So that's always another metric I think that we've used, and,
Let's,
and and just also how I felt about it. I mean,
yeah.
how I felt, and whether the stories moved me, and so I was always. It's a lot of work and a lot of effort, but I was always very proud of the seasons I put in.
So let's celebrate some of those moments going back to seasons 5, 6, and 7. For those of us who do deep dives into behind the scenes of When Calls the Heart, your contributions are very well known and highly respected. I want to highlight a few of those, starting with season 5. In season 5, you were a part of, and as the showrunner, there was the marriage of Jack and Elizabeth. There was Jack's deployment and the tragic death. And there was Elizabeth's pregnancy. So, all very tough and emotional topics. Can you talk about navigating those moments as a writer?
Well, the everything that you mentioned was born out of the fact that Daniel Lissing, the actor who played Jack, wanted to leave the show. So as soon as I knew that was going to happen, uh, and already even in season 5, he was only going to be available for a certain number of shows. That was his choice too, that he was going to be in every season. So I had to sort of work within those parameters. And once I knew he was leaving, I thought, okay, well, how do I make the most out of this from a dramatic standpoint? How do I, you know, you go through all these different possibilities. Well, after all this time, you don't want them to break up, or just leave, or be sort of, we don't know if he's coming back or not. I thought he's not coming back, so let's make the most dramatic story we can. And so from that, I say, well, then he's probably going to die a hero, right? That's the most dramatic thing we can do. But if he's going to die a hero, I don't want the season to end with just that.
Yeah.
So how do we give hope and leave a little bit of Jack in the series? Well, if Elizabeth has a baby, right? So, but for Elizabeth to have a baby, she's going to get married. She's going
Yeah.
to get married. So all those things sort of line up to
Yeah.
make it sort of work.
Well, and I agree. There had to be for 5 seasons of building Elizabeth and Jack, there had to be some sort of a payoff, knowing what was inevitable and what was going
Yeah.
to happen. And then you had to follow that up with season 6, knowing how many Hearties were distraught in the moment. And we were introduced to several new characters in season 6. So we were introduced to Lucas, we were introduced to Nathan and Allie, and Fiona. Once again, not shying away from challenging storylines there. Finding a way to incorporate Lucas and then Nathan and Allie into Elizabeth's healing journey. So, how did you envision each of them fitting into that arc?
The uh, I knew that we couldn't end season sixth with Jack's death, and then start up with a romance. So I knew it would be sort of a longer sort of road for her to get back to being ready for a romance. And then I also thought that, I wanted, it would be interesting to have the two men who are interested in her. And I really wanted it to be a tough choice because oftentimes when you see a romantic triangle like that, it's like the audience is saying, you got to go with that one. I mean, the other guy is secretly not a good guy, or just, the audience knows it. It's like and I really wanted to create a tough choice. Two very different men who, in their own right, were good men and were suitable for Elizabeth.
Yeah.
And part of for Nathan, I wanted him to not only be this this great Mountie, but being the kind of man who would step up and raise his niece, and that
Mhm.
would be part of who his this man is like. How could you not respect a man who will do that, right?
Yeah.
Uh, so so that's what why I created the Allie characters, just to have, and then bringing Allie into the school would be another way for her, Elizabeth, to have those kind of interactions with Nathan, where it doesn't have to be like a romance. It's just like a father daughter, parent teacher kind of thing, where you're looking for organic ways to bring characters together, and that was an organic way for me to do that.
Did you have any idea that your triangle would be as successful as it was?
In my mind, I had already was thinking, well, if this works, there will be Team Nathan and Team Lucas, and it didn't take long for that to really take hold. But I was already envisioning those, Team Lucas and Team Nathan, because I wanted it to be that close of I knew if I was successful in creating two good men, that would be the result.
And what's amazing is that both of them have now been on the series longer than even Daniel was. And so,
Yeah,
creating those characters and their longevity really worked. So,
yeah.
can you share about Fiona? Like,
And Fiona, I knew we were coming into the 1920s, and I thought, what can we do to, spice it up, right? I love this fact that this uh, woman comes into town, and she's wearing like the newest fashion, which was like ankle length dresses or skirts, and that would be causing like this frenzy among certain members of the community. I just love that sort of shaking it up, shaking
yeah,
the town up a little bit, and
yeah,
her spirit. I just you know that Kayla's the audition was just spot on, where she had that kind of sparkle and bubbliness and brightness to her. I
yeah,
really that's what I wanted in that
yeah.
character.
Yeah. We that season having all four of them come on was such a highlight with big dividends. So it was exciting to see that
And I
happen.
brought the telephone the first
Oh,
episode
that's
of
right.
season
You sure
six. The
did.
first
Yeah.
episode of six was another new change. New things are coming. I wanted that.
And you can usher that into Brookfield at some point too,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
I don't know how many people know this, but how did you come up with the names of some of those characters?
Well, I named Lucas and Nathan after my two sons, Lucas and Nathan, and Allie is named after my daughter. So it's
That's
and then I have one other daughter who Sophia, who I named I named a character after her in the first season of one. I just
yeah,
that's just sort of a showrunner's prerogative.
yeah.
That's for your family to see that. I think they have fun with that. It's,
Absolutely. Yeah, that's pretty cool to hear. So season seven, you were also the showrunner, and we, looking back at season seven, we call it the hug heard round the world. Can you talk about building to that cliffhanger? Did it bring the emotions that you expected it to bring?
it did, and that's another thing I felt I needed to have some payoff because we had the men who were, and it. and I wanted it to be I wanted to to get social media involved. I wanted their reaction. I felt they would have a reaction, and I knew that it wasn't like necessarily a a choice, it wasn't like this is the choice I'm making, but it was sort of like happened in that moment. And I loved uh, Kevin McGarry's expression there at the end as you sing that. It's like how you just
Yeah.
it gives you that moment again, those goosebump moments where you just
Uh-huh.
feel for it. So it was a nice payoff.
Definitely one of those moments that not even at the end of season 7, but we're talking about we're in season 12 has ended now. There are still reels and posts that are made of the hug. So it has stood the test. So well done on that one. What to you, because that was, sometimes you'll have a cliffhanger that, it creates this gasp. Other times you create a cliffhanger that, is going to give you that warm, fuzzy feeling and excitement for what's to come. What to you makes a great cliffhanger?
I guess just people wanting to come back and for more and not being able to wait to see the next where it goes from there.
Yeah.
So that's and whether it's the warm fuzzy or the gas, as long as it ends up with the feeling of we want more. That's what you want as a writer
Yeah.
showrunner.
Yeah. I know it's hard to pick out favorite moments because it's almost like, you're trying to tell a child who's your favorite child. But looking back over those 3 seasons, what moments were some of your favorite moments?
You know, the it was uh, more about like if you have a endurance test and you made it through. I mean that it's more about having done it. And I feel like season 5 was a real challenge because of all the
Yeah.
things at play. And I really felt when we were shooting the burial scene, it amazed me how nature provided this production value that we could not have provided given our budget. There in the scene where we're burying him, that this low fog rolled in, and it just looked so beautiful
Yeah.
and solemn, but just profound. And I thought, wow, that's just, and then to hear the bagpipes and to hear, the Rosemary character sing that song was just and and the episode where, and I tell people this all the time because it was so moving to me, where I have all the widows afterwards talking to Elizabeth about their experiences losing someone. And I was sitting next to the director, and and each take, the actresses, in their characters would get teary-eyed telling their story, and I would get teary-eyed, and it was take after take after take, and then the director would yell cut, and the actresses would leave and get makeup and hair done. We would move the cameras around and we'd do it again. So the actresses would come out teary-eyed, they'd be dabbing their eyes, and they'd come back and do it again. And every single time I got teary-eyed. So
Mhm.
it was amazing that kind of emotion that the actresses were able to bring. And that was, those were powerful moments that I remember.
Hmm. I got goosebumps reliving them in my mind as you were talking about them. So I think it worked. Very powerful and moving moments. So at the end of season 7, where there was such a big cliffhanger going on, and help me to understand the timing of everything, because I believe like you had that opportunity to, create When Hope Calls and make that shift. What inspired you to make that shift? Do I have that timing right?
Yeah, the so at the end of season 6, I
Okay.
wrote the Christmas episode that created the characters. So I was running all along. I mean, I was running from seasons. I was running season 7 and season of season seven, One Calls the Heart, and then season one of Hope Calls at the same time. So I had, and they were on opposite sides of the country, the actual shoot. One was shooting in Vancouver, one was shooting in Ontario. But in LA, I had a, a two writers' rooms with in one space. So I had two conference rooms. So I would just go from one conference room to the other. And I had my hope was to try to make it so there was very little overlap so that I could, but what had happened is the Lori Loughlin thing happened. So I ended up at the same time as running seven to have One Calls the Heart and one of When Hope Calls. I had to rewrite season six of One Calls the Heart and re-edit it. So because they had aired, I think, episode five, four or five, and then we stopped production, we stopped airing it, and then we just rewrote scenes, went to Vancouver to shop for about a week, and then re-edited all the scenes. So that's sort of what I hoped would be sort of you know not concurrent, that they would be there'd be little overlap. It ended up being a lot of overlap because of
A
that.
lot.
So um,
Wow.
well, what was your well, it's a long-winded way, but so that's how it ended up happening. But that was probably, no, I can say without that, that was the most challenging year of my professional life just because of all those elements going on at the same time.
Yeah.
And
But it's,
I'm very proud of all I mean, and it turned out, I mean, season six turned out well, and season seven and season one of When Hope, but it was a big challenge.
I would say if you would ask Hearties, those seasons were some of our favorites. So you had a lot of good things on your side going, given what you were having to overcome during that time. So you had focused in on season one of When Hope Calls. What would you say? Some of the writing choices that you made in When Calls the Heart, how did those inspire the choices? And you've shared a little bit about, the orphan story and all of that, but what were some of those choices that inspired you for When Hope Calls?
Well, I think the acronym that I talk about, the HER acronym, for both of them, so I had identified that as being the kind of show that What Calls the Heart is and what made it successful. And so I just wanted to make sure those elements were in when Hope Calls, because I
Yeah,
felt that was what worked. Um, that the DNA is the same, but there are differences between the two series, but that they you still have the her elements in both of them.
yeah. So can you bring
And for
us,
those who don't know, her is humor, emotion, romance.
there we go. And we'll talk about those a little bit more when we get into season two, which I'm excited to talk about. So, can you bring us up to speed on any new or returning characters? Kind of where are we with the characters of season two of When Hope Calls? Because it's been
The
a while since season one.
Yeah, so in the all of the characters who were in season one are in season two, except for Grace and Chuck, who we've established are now in London. And then one other character, Sam Prospector, we recast. So, but everyone else is the same. And but in addition to that, we're bringing four new leads into our storylines, and some of whom you've spoken to, right? So
Yeah. So, can you talk on the side when you're talking about the humor, the emotion, and the romance? Um, did those things, how did they play into your casting of the new characters that that are in season two?
you know, it's more about their ability. If we cast really good actors, and both series have really good actors. I mean, I'm really proud of the actors in both shows. I think they're what's great about them is that no matter what you write, you know they'll be able to deliver it. As a writer, what you learn on series is that, okay, this actor may be strong in this area, but maybe not so strong in that area, and you write toward it. You write to their strengths. And I find that, all the actors in both series are just strong actors, and they'll deliver whatever uh, we write. And I know that I tell them this too, and it's true. Once we cast them, they become that role, and I just hear their voices in my head, and it makes it easier to write because I can, they're sort of speaking and they're ad-libbing as I'm writing, so it's great. They're
Well, and
ad-libbing in my head.
I would totally agree. We're learning about the new characters in When Hope Calls, and many Hearties have a pretty good understanding of those characters on When Calls the Heart. And it's so evident that they're such talented actors that at any given moment we can flip from humor or it can get very serious. And then there's always the romance. So I remember Brian Bird saying also, he's like, they're such talented actors. Any of them could get an Emmy. It's just the
Mhm.
nature of the type of programming that these two shows are, but they're such talented actors.
They really are.
Yeah. When you're writing, do you typically know the ending and write towards it? Or are you writing as the stories evolve? Or is there a bit of a mix there?
Uh, the I generally know how it's going to end, but I don't know the delivery of the end. I don't know how the characters are going to say what they need to say to get to that emotional point. But I know this is the point that, in the writer's room, you have, cards, and sometimes, you have most often you have the beginning and then you have the end, and you sort of like what where you want to go. You don't know necessarily how you're going to get there, but you start building that out with other cards. And then, when you have it all on a board and then on a piece of paper, it's still the fleshing out of it. When you flesh it out, it becomes more emotional, more real, and then you see other opportunities as you're doing that to take it, uh, like little twists and turns, but you'll generally end where you thought you ended. We're going to end.
Okay, so in this particular season, I know you've mentioned that you didn't know if When Hope Calls season two was going to be, 6, 8, or 10 episodes. So were you able to, keep that initial idea for an ending in mind and then just kind of navigate the middle based on how many episodes you guys were gifted with?
Yes, I mean, we knew I had a version of what it would look like if it were six, what it would look like if it were eight, and what it would look like if it were 10. But the sixth one was going to always, it was going to end like that. So however I truncated it, but a lot of what I envisioned for 6, 7 through 10 can come back because I was
Got
always,
it. I got it. Okay. This is why we need a season three, right?
yeah, it'll be an exciting one if we get it.
Yes. So we've talked about some of the departures that you had to deal with at When Calls the Heart in season five and in season six. You've had to write where major characters have left. And that's no different than this season, where we saw two of our major characters not necessarily depart the show, but we wrote where they are not necessarily in that storyline right now. So can you talk about how you navigate changes like that and what you've learned from that experience?
It's it's sort of moving on the fly a little bit because in production things happen all the time. And when we started, we weren't sure about actors' availability, so you just shift it. And if you're nimble as a writer, you can you make it work. I mean, it's just take whatever is there and then make it an opportunity, make it a storyline. Like for example, with Gabriel character, I didn't know he was not going to be there in the first two episodes. I thought he was going to be there more, and I thought the Lillian actress would be available more than she was. So it was just a constant changing of it, and so I ended up having the way it ended up having. I had the Gabriel actor on different days and I had the Lillian actor, so I made that adjustment by
Yeah,
having her
yeah,
write the letter and it was
yeah,
telegram, and then
yeah.
not meeting until the very end. So it's and I felt that worked. But and the other way I would have done it would have worked too if they were available, right? So it's just
Yeah.
you take what you have and then you sort of mold it from there.
The challenges of this type of writing when you were getting out of the procedural writing and now you've got this, you're like, I have reached the challenging writing that I always wanted, right?
Yes, it's
Ask
fun
and
and
you
it's a
will
challenge.
receive.
Yeah,
So
what
it
happened to the act of end of Act Three and of Act Four is, it's so procedural, it's so set, and they also have their actors tied up for a lot of years, so you don't have the same challenges. That's
yeah.
true, and I think
Yeah.
about that. Yeah,
Many of us were really curious knowing that there, were several years where we didn't have When Hope Calls, and then knowing that there were going to be some shifts in characters. We were very curious as to how you would be able to navigate and write an exit of some characters and then bringing in some new characters. And honestly, so many people have sung your praises about how masterfully that was done. It didn't feel contrived. It was a very, it made sense. You introduced two new characters in episode three, as we saw two characters exit in episode two. So, can you walk us through how you plan to make those shifts? As two leave, we've got two coming in episode three.
it's again born out of necessity. It's and then and the key in doing it is to try to make it seamless. How do you make this theme natural? And I just this is a ranching community, so I felt that I'd love to make a character who has ties to it, but is still a fish out of water, and then to have the romance element potential there. You see at least the seeds of it, and again, I felt that our the Wyatt and the Hannah roles were just our actors did a great job with that coming in, and Sarah and Nick, but they did they were great.
Yeah, they are fantastic. There hasn't, my opinion, there hasn't been any loss in, two exiting and these two coming in. It felt very much on this side of it that um, episodes one and two were setting a story, but at the same time, maybe tying up a few like loose ends of the past to bring in this usher in this new Brookfield era. Is that what you were going for?
Yeah, it is, and it's such a compressed 6 episodes. I wish we had more, but I had to do it all in like a little bit of time, and
Yeah.
I feel we were successful, but it's a challenge,
Yeah, it
and
really did work. I think that it didn't feel jarring to go from episode two to episode three, but it did feel like a little bit of a different life when
yeah,
episode three came in. Very exciting and very fast paced. It felt like things were moving in episode three.
yeah, yeah,
You've talked about Hannah and Wyatt coming in. We've got Nora and Michael, who also arrived in Brookfield. And then we've got Sam and Maggie, who we had hints of their relationship in the Christmas movie that was done a while back. It's interesting because we have kind of three. I wouldn't say that it's been like plastered out there. Here are three characters, but I think we're all picking up what you've kind of like set out there for us. It's interesting that you didn't choose a triangle because we know you've created a triangle in the past. So, how did you determine, like, okay, we've got these pairings versus creating some sort of a triangle? And maybe there's a triangle to come. I don't know.
I think there's still maybe a triangle to come, but because of the fact that there are 6 episodes, I couldn't, and introducing a lot of new characters, I felt doing that, putting that in the mix right now would have been too much. I
Too
mean,
much.
too much to try to accomplish with the number of episodes we had.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah. And it's nice because it's just little hints right now,
Yeah,
but enough to, make us wonder where it's going. So, the cast of When Hope Calls has shared that in their mind, that When Hope Calls may have a little bit more action than When Calls the Heart. Is that something that you would agree with, having kind of been in both worlds?
Yes, it does have more action. Partly just the fact that the setting is a little more remote. Um, I remember talking to Kevin McGarry because I had him on the first in the first season. He was a guest star, and he saw that too. He said, "There's more action in this series," and so even in season one, we had more action. And then I can tell you that this season, at the end of the season, we have a bigger action sequence than has ever been in either show. It's going to be the biggest action sequence that we have, and
That's
it's
amazing.
yeah. So I do think that is and I know both. I know that Chris Russell and Trevor Donovan both are lobbying for more action.
Oh, yeah.
They said, keep it coming, keep it coming. They love
Yeah.
that.
Chris shared that he is in the Mountie uniform, which we're not used to seeing Nathan Grant in the Mountie uniform 99.9% of the time. But clearly, Christopher loves playing a Mountie and said he is in the
Yeah,
Mountie uniform almost the entire season. So,
yeah. Although
yeah.
I made sure to take the red serge off and put him chopping wood, and I think it was in episode two, right? That he's
Yep.
chopping wood. Just this,
Yeah, it just
give him a little
happened.
bit of
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, we needed the token wood chopping scene. We picked up on it for sure. And the little look back from Nora as she
Yeah.
was walking off. So, yeah, we got that. That was great. The cast of When Hope Calls is much smaller than When Calls the Heart. Is that easier or harder for you as a writer?
It's I would say what happens is that when you start a series, you can have a smaller cast because you're getting to know the cast and getting to know the characters, right? And they have their stories to tell and you have their interactions with other characters. But as the series goes on, you want a bigger cast because each time you bring another character in, it changes the dynamics of potentially changes the dynamics of the whole town or all the characters in the town. So you need that kind of shake up as the series seasons go on. So a series like One Calls the Heart now is going in the 13th. So you need to bring on these other characters in order to keep the fuel, to keep it
Yeah.
going, I think.
Yeah.
And I think that if When Hope Calls continues on through many seasons, you'll see that cast grow too, because
Okay.
you want that just to keep the interest and the fuel of the stories going on.
Okay, got it. So, you have shared on numerous podcasts that tapping into that mo emotion is, and you, even today already, very important to you. We've already seen moments like that, just really powerful moments with Sugar being lost, with Lillian's farewell, Nora meeting the orphans, and even Hannah most recently at her uncle's grave. With 3 episodes left, can we expect even deeper emotional moments than what we've seen so far?
Yeah, because a lot of it was, like planting the seeds, and then you see those sprout, right? And the emotion is going to come from having the work that we put in the first few episodes. You'll see a payoff. A lot of There's some really nice goosebump moments, I think, are coming.
It sounds like we have got a lot that's going to happen in these other 3 episodes, right?
Yeah.
So this season is only 6 episodes, and you've shared a little bit about that. But how do you approach writing that differently with what you even did on When Calls the Heart when you only have those 6 episodes?
It's I mean it's sort of the same in that you have to have a beginning, middle, and end. You have to have in each episode you have to have a beginning, middle, and end. And then in each season, you have to have a beginning, middle, and end. And however many episodes it is, you build that in. So when I discovered it was going to be 6 episodes, I just built in, you know, when you watch the series, the season finale, it's okay. You'll see the culmination of a lot of things that we're we're seeding in right now.
Okay. All right. You've shared that that crazy time where you were in between both sets who are on opposite sides of Canada. Were you able to be on set for season 2 of When Hope Calls?
Yes, I was there. I was on set almost the whole time, but being on set really is takes on a different meaning when you know how production works.
Okay.
So the way we shoot 2 episodes at a time, and we have a director for that 2 episode block, and then we have a net director for next 2 episode block. So, you know, before we start production, we're in prep, and I'm going through and working with the costumers and the assistant directors and the production design and the direct and we're seeing what needs to, we're plotting out the episode and how many days we have the children. We only have to, with children you can only have them so many hours. So once once the first day of production starts of one block, I'm now prepping the next block with the director. So I'm not prepping it the whole time, like 20 the whole 12 hours that we're there per day, but a lot of my days there. So I'm going back and forth from the set to meetings with the production designer and the assistant director. They're telling me that, well, we can't shoot, we need to do something about making our day, which means that it's going to take too long to shoot this. So we have to figure out how to. So there's just a lot of strategy and work that goes into the prep. So I'm on set, but I may be in the trailer. I may be in another part of the set. So you're bouncing around a lot, or I'm bouncing around a lot.
Is that because you're the showrunner of the season or the co-creator, or this is just your baby?
Well, it's the showrunner. As a showrunner, you're there. You're just back and forth
Okay.
meeting with what's going on with the the show that's being shot, and then the show that's being prepped. And then once you're in the second block, now you're dealing with the show that's being edited, and the show
Okay.
that's being shot, and the show that's being prepped. So you're moving around and spreading yourself to
And we've heard there was
address it
some
all.
construction that went on for season 2 as well. Is that correct?
A beautiful ranch. I mean, that's what I wanted to. I really wanted to. Again, what makes this show a little more unique, what makes it different from When Calls the Heart is the industry. Like in When Calls the Heart, season one it was coal, and season two was timber. We never, because of the set, we could never show much timber being done, but that's what the industry is. And here the industry is ranching, so and we can show that. And we have the production value of having cows and horses. And so I wanted another one of those. I wanted a big ranch for these our 2 new characters. So we were building it right up until the end. I mean, it's just like when you walked in the first day, you could still smell the fresh paint because
Yeah. Well, and I
and before
heard, is
that we
this,
were shooting around it.
yeah, like you guys were already shooting when the ranch was being built, correct?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Do you have any visions or dreams for like what else you can do with the set if there are, when there are future seasons?
I just what I want to do is some of the sets is are facades and some of them are full insides. Like, some of the things you see are just from the outside.
Yeah,
I want to build more interiors in town,
got
and
it.
I want to bake a bigger town. I mean, we already have visions of, like, of extending it and having another cross street of just more buildings and just make it bigger and more sets. So that's my vision of it,
Got
where it
it.
goes. And
I know When Calls the Heart uses the saloon for a lot of spaces that really aren't designed as the saloon. Do you have something similar like that in Brookfield?
we Yes, I mean we have the schoolhouse in there, and we show some kids coming out of that. It's actually an interior, but that interior we use for other things. We create other sets in there, and then for the interior of the hotel, we would use the one of the orphans' rooms and redo it, and that's how that. So we
Got
use
it.
the
Got it. Being on set, were there any, moments funny moments or anything that you could share?
the only thing that I'm not sure it's funny, but it's the where we shoot in Northern Ontario is way up there. It's like a 3.5 hour drive north of Toronto, so it's pretty remote area.
Yeah.
There's wildlife there. So, during our shoot, while we were building the ranch house, there were bears around it, just looking at us. Well, and once while in a trailer where our trailers are, Cindy Busby was walking her dog, and a moose came out, and it was
Oh,
she said, there's a moose." Everyone started taking pictures of
the moose grabbed Sue's.
it.
Oh no, that's crazy. Yeah. Like grizzly bears? Or
I think
just
these were black bears that
okay.
were there.
It's like well, you said it like, yeah, there were bears, and I was like, and my mind starts going, okay, I'm not used to that. We have black bears here, so it's a little bit more. I
Yeah.
get that a little bit more. So, oh my goodness. Being there, did you guys have to make any significant changes? You get on set, you've written it a certain way. Was there anything that you had to really, dig in and modify? Or was it just because you're so familiar already with Brookfield and everything went smoothly?
I can tell you, things never go super smoothly. Things always happen, where the machines break down, cars break down. Even on One Calls the Heart, I remember like uh, someone being in the Model T, and the Model T wasn't running. So you see someone waving and the car moving, but what you don't see is people behind it pushing
Pushing it.
it.
You figure it out, right?
Yeah.
So we are halfway through When Hope Calls. A few people have seen episode 4. The rest will see episode 4 in the next couple of days. As we look towards those final 3 episodes of When Hope Calls, what can fans expect?
Um, I mean, there's just some real goosebump moments I expect, and some. I mean, there's so many different storylines that I'm moving around that all of our characters experience in different ways the past, present, and future coming full circle. It's just, there are these moments for almost all of them in our storylines where the past, present, and future sort of converge for them, and for some it's going to be like heartwarming. For some, it's going to be like really emotional, and for some, it's going to feel dangerous.
Mm, okay. So definitely hitting the emotion string again. We've seen some great humorous moments. Just figuring out that Sam cannot be around Hay. That was such a great funny moment. I am assuming there will be some more romance coming up as well.
Yeah, more romance. I think episode 4 that's coming up has some nice humorous elements to it that people are going to have fun with. Um,
So, because you're known for leaning into that emotional storytelling, what kind of an emotion will we experience in the final 2 moments of this season finale?
just what I was saying, is going to be past, present, and future
Okay.
coming together and creating profound moments for some and uncertain moments for others. And I just love how everything is converges at the end of everyone's future, past, present, future. It just comes together. and has this impact, different impact on everybody.
That's awesome. That's exciting to look forward to. Having been on both When Calls the Heart and When Hope Calls, it's like both of them are shows that are like that little engine that just doesn't quit. We had a break with When Hope Calls, but it's back, and we're really excited about what we've seen so far. So, despite all of those odds, what has kept you motivated, and why do you think that both shows have managed to beat the odds?
Well, I think they've managed to beat the odds because there's uh, the audience. There's an audience for them. There's an audience for this kind of programming. So that's I think um, the main reason. And then you have these strong actors who are telling these who are portraying these characters and doing it well.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree. Really excited for these last few episodes. Can you remind us how everybody can watch When Hope Calls?
It streams on PureFlix, and it is on the Great American Family Channel.
Yeah,
And to me, that's what I don't know is like what channel it is on everywhere. That's
yeah,
the biggest
yeah.
challenge I think for this show is finding it.
Where
I'm
is
hoping
Great
to,
American Family? And I do
yeah.
know for our Canadians that it is on Super Channel Heart and Home as well. So we've got that. Those two are on Sunday nights, and then you can watch it on PureFlix on Thursdays. So I've enjoyed also having on PureFlix the premium version because we've been able to have those moments with the cast to kind of watch it with them, which has been
Mhm.
really exciting to see. I think for me, one thing that I have been really inspired by with When Hope Calls and this cast is how much they love this show. And it really seems like you guys hit it out of the park with this cast, not because they're talented actors, but just how much they enjoy working together and the
Mhm.
story that they're telling. It really kind of goes back to what you said. It's why these shows stand the test is because of who's acting, who's there, and just their commitment to the story.
Yeah, the actors really uh, bought in and they really got along on the set. And what I tell people is that on the set, like the more than the showrunners, much more than the show, the main actors dictate the mood of the set. How gracious they are with the people they work with, and that they not be divas, right? And these actors, they're not. They're great. And they're great with the cast. People enjoy working with them. It's been fantastic.
Yeah, yeah. I've enjoyed visiting with several of them and can attest that they're amazing actors on screen, but they're just gracious and kind people at the same time. So it makes all the difference, I'm sure.
Yeah, it really
Yeah.
does. It
Well,
makes work
Alfonso,
coming to work fun.
yeah, yeah. Thank you so much for visiting today. I am so excited to see the last half of the season and what it brings. Thank you for all of your contributions to When Hope Calls and also to When Calls the Heart. Again, like I said before, those were three of my favorite seasons and for so many. And it's exciting to see the work that you did there and now see, your writing over here on When Hope Calls. I imagine we're just going to continue to see more and more Hearties finding When Hope Calls and seeing those great stories that you're writing. So thank you for your contributions.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Bye bye.